Okay, here's a complete WoW Plunderstorm guide as fast as possible as to not waste too much of your time. Firstly, to play Plunderstorm, you need an active WoW subscription and World of Warcraft installed. There are no add-ons and no UI customization, so once you have a subscription, you can jump right in. Click the Plunderstorm mode on the top left of the character screen, then create your Plunderstorm character. Understand that this is almost entirely cosmetic. Of course, smaller characters might be harder to see at a glance, but of course, WoW has targeting and nameplates, so really it doesn't matter in my opinion. If you want to duo with a friend, have them get to this page also, and then you can invite them through this button on the left side. You can also just queue duos by yourself and get a random teammate who can chat with you in game, or you can just elect to queue solos. Before you dive in, WoW Plunderstorm is a very grassroots battle royale. That means it's not really mechanically complicated. There are 60 players, either all solos or 30 squads of duo, depending on which mode you select. When you die in solos, you lose. There's no way to come back, there's no gulag, you can spectate or go back to the lobby. When you die in duos, you can spectate your teammate and they can res you by standing on your corpse for a significant amount of time until the cast bar finishes. This cast bar is massive, so make sure you're safe when you're going for a res. Hit play in the pregame lobby and this is your time in this area to set up your keybinds, as for some reason you can't do it in the prior character screen. You also may have a quest on the right side of your screen that you might need to complete. When keybinding, make sure you bind attack, heal, 2 offensive spells, the utility spells, and your consumable item. You may also want to bind ping to communicate with your duo. You might also want to bind interact with target if you want to press, for example, F to pick up items instead of clicking. And I also recommend binding toggle autorun just in case you don't like holding W the entire game. Moving on to the actual gameplay. After the pre-game lobby, you'll spawn into a bird above the map. Use WASD to pilot the bird, and right-click drag your mouse to handle broader direction changes. The bird can go much farther than it seems if you want to land somewhere safe, but just know that the controls on the bird are kind of scuffed and kind of delayed, so just commit to an input and the bird will eventually follow it. Your goal when landing is to land on a mob, and ideally an elite, or a group of mobs. Diving down instantly kills any NPC you land on, and elites are guaranteed to drop an item. It'll take a second for you to figure out where the elites are, but you can use your minimap to look for skulls, or it's usually just a physically larger mob. Note when you're fighting mobs that most mobs have directional attacks, meaning you can dodge and take 0 damage when fighting 90% of the NPCs in the game. When you land and loot your first spell, you want to ping pong between elites and chests, but don't ignore the little guys as they also have a chance to drop spells and they give you a decent bit of XP. And no matter what you kill or loot, pick up the plunder coins all around. This is your battle pass progression currency and it is not lost when you die. Even though you explode in gold when you die, it's not your gold. Picking up random coins around the map will also give you a big chunk of XP sometimes. Speaking of, doing basically anything in this game gives you XP, and every time you level up, your health goes up and all your abilities do more damage. When picking up spells, you can press tab to change where the arrow is, then click or interact with the desired spell to swap it to that correct slot. You can also freely click and drag spells to swap them or move them around within your bar. Now at this early stage of the game, RNG is going to be what's determining who has the best weapons. So I personally would avoid conflict with players early on unless you feel really confident or you just want to risk it. Remember, you're here to have fun first, so do whatever you want, to be completely honest. Now this early game when you're killing NPCs is a good time to learn how your heal works. The heal in the game is channeled, it's interrupted by jumping or taking direct damage. Damage from the storm, however, does not interrupt the heal, and everyone has the same heal, there's no way to change or upgrade it. You can freely heal in combat as long as you don't get hit, and the heal does not full heal you, but it's about 60% of your health. The heal also has a 30-second cooldown regardless of how much of the heal you used, and when you're respawned by your teammate, you will not be respawned at full HP, but you will also be respawned with your heal on cooldown, so you have to be really careful. Note that when you die, you drop all your weapons on the ground, so you have to pick them up if your duo reses you. Another thing the game does not teach you is that you can double jump, and you can change direction mid-air on the second jump, and there is no fall damage. Also though, there is no climbing up mountains, so be mindful of getting trapped by the storm inside the mines. As you run around and collect abilities, try using them all. You can swap abilities freely, however in combat you can't swap anything that's currently on cooldown. Notice some abilities are instant, some have a short cast, some have a very long cast, and others have an empowerment, meaning you hold to cast and then you release at the desired power level. The most power isn't always what you want, so make sure to test them out. The Ice Lance ability requires a target and cannot miss, but the game will by default target near enemies in the direction you're looking. Note that all abilities besides Ice Lance propagate out the front of your character. I recommend holding mouse right click so you always know where the abilities are being aimed, as WoW characters do not turn to face the direction you're looking until you release the input. Some abilities also just hit all around your character, so it doesn't really matter which way you're looking sometimes. Note that some consumables require a keybind to press and another keybind to deactivate, and some abilities can be repeatedly pressed to cancel it early. So be careful if you're spamming keybinds, and be careful if you're using consumables, because you might be trapped in some sort of car or barrel. Now, as far as farming and leveling up early on, I would suggest to get to level 6 or 7 before you look to fight other players, but again, do what you think is right. Levels matter a lot less than people have been believing. Even though someone 2 levels above you appears reddish and someone 2 levels below you is green, you can still kill higher level players, and you can still die to lower level players pretty easily. In a mirror matchup of spells at the same HP, the higher level person should always win. As you're exploring, you may notice a giant gold opulence boss called Pieces of Hatred. This boss has a lot of health, like maybe 20 or 30 times a normal elite's level of health. If you kill the boss and while fighting it, it drops a ton of gold around you, which is really valuable for your battle pass progression. This boss does a ton of damage, and most of the boss's swirlies are either one-shots or near one-shots. In addition, there's only around 2 of these bosses spawning per map, so people will know that you're fighting the boss, and it's usually a pretty high contention area. Now, if you do kill the boss, it drops a big purple chest that gives you 1 purple rarity spell. And on the topic of rarity spells, if you have a spell on your hotbar and you find another duplicate of that spell on the ground, picking up the duplicate will instead upgrade your current spell. And the spell upgrades follows WoW rarity system, so it goes from gray all the way to purple. And upgrading a spell generally reduces its cooldown, either slightly increases its area of effect, makes it do a little more damage. It kind of varies per spell, and the tooltips don't really help with figuring this out. Now, from this point on, if you want to just get the most plunder and avoid combat, do the quests on your right side of your screen and avoid players. You get a new quest every single match, and you get a bonus for your first quest done per day. Kill a ton of NPCs and just play for high placement, try to live as long as you can. Now, if you want to go the traditional BR route and slaughter your way to the top, then strap in, here's some good advice. Firstly, understand that the heal is channeled and it's not a full heal. The cooldown is 30 seconds, meaning very rarely does a committed fight last long enough to get a full bar of healing off or 2 instances of healing. This means that the person who uses their heal first is generally at a long-term disadvantage in the fight. This makes HP your most important resource, and it will determine the pacing of every fight you take. Playing patient and keeping your distance when you have no heal is generally the safer choice. And another common mistake I see players making is not understanding that you don't have to full commit. Because we only have 4 spells to play with, there's going to be a lot of natural downtime in 1v1 or 2v2 fights. This is your window to decide if you want to position aggressively and commit more, or you want to lay back and try to buy time for your heal. If you see your opponent has used their full heal and you are still healthy and they have less health and you still have your heal up, you can play super aggressive and then in the heat of the battle get a quick couple ticks off of your heal to give you the advantage, and that should win you the fight. Just know that this is full committing, and of course it can have varying results depending on the skills of the players. As far as how you navigate the closing storm, note that enemy NPCs are swept away by the storm, so there's no going into the storm to farm, and committing to an enemy while the storm is nearby can be super troll because the enemy will die just as the storm's getting there and you lose all the loot. And as far as I'm aware, the storm does not fully close in, although I've not had the luxury of just being able to sit there and wait. From what I can tell, blue lightning swirlies start spawning after the final circle has closed, and these deal very heavy damage and start spawning faster and in higher amounts until a winner is declared. I also don't think the storm does more damage as time goes on. It seems to tick every couple seconds, and remember, if you're in the storm and you heal, the storm's direct damage does not stop your heal, so you can out-heal the storm for a couple seconds. And in that final storm, remember you can try to CC your enemies into the blue swirlies that spawn and get you a pretty easy, cheap, admittedly kind of cheesy win. That about does it for the quick guide though. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully you enjoy this new surprise game mode we got. Let me know if anything I said was wrong, or let me know if this guide helped. Later!